question, or discuss something, I'm willing to stay on, but you don't have to.
Yes. Typically we've done that on the Wednesday nights as best as we can. So I feel full and challenged, inspired, also different things. But I've had a chance to interact with Paul for a number of years now. And so this will stir up and create some things. So please, anybody raise your hand or indicate. Feel free to do that. Everybody's in shock mode. I don't know. Or maybe they're tired.
Yeah, just raise your hand or drop a comment so we can unmute you. I have one in the interim. Someone texted me, they want to be anonymous. Paul, how, and I know this is a how question, and I know how you feel about how questions.
I love them.
But as you were talking about, the orphan heart, the widowed heart, and the alienated heart, I had someone message me and ask, how can I tell the difference which one my heart is operating from, the orphan spirit, the widowed spirit, or the alienated spirit?
They all have the same movement. They have the feeling of not belonging. But they often have a different object where it's felt more intensely. When it's felt in friendships or at work or in churches, it's often what leads you to find other friends or go to different towns or whatever. Shows that, see, because you got to remember, it's all a progression. When Adam and Eve sinned, against God, there was this huge bang in the garden where they knew that they were separated from God as Father, and their heart of son and daughter became the heart of an orphan. But at the same time, there was if you slowed it all down, there'd be bang, bang. There were two bangs. You could hardly tell that there were two. But you see, Adam sinned against Eve, and Eve sinned against Adam, and they broke the covenant between each other. And so they were divorced at that moment, because it's not a contract. It's not something you go down to the county clerk's office and that makes you married. There's a covenant love that makes you married. And when that covenant love is gone, then you can feel that it's not there. So I'll give you an example. Like, I knew at one point, I knew something was wrong in my marriage because I was laying in bed next to my wife, thinking to myself, oh, I'd rather be anywhere on the earth than next to her. Well, that's not an issue between me and my father. It's not an issue between, me and my brothers and sisters or whatever. It was very clear that the object of my angst was in the marriage. And now it doesn't have to come out like that. But those types of, you may even want the marriage to work, but the other person doesn't. And that widowed heart can come from your parents. And maybe they faked it till the end, like my parents. But you still didn't get it. And so sometimes it overlaps, but you see, it's all of it asks the question, well, what about me? Who's going to take care of me, is what a son says. My 8-year-old asked me just recently, he says, Papa, I don't want to grow up. And I said, well, what do you mean, son? It's exciting to grow up. And he goes, what am I going to do without my grown-up? I had to stop and think, like, oh, yeah, he's dependent on us for everything. Well, this is something that works out. This, what about me? What am I going to do? How's this going to work? You can find the object of that, because there's always an object of our love or the lack of love. And it doesn't take long. Sometimes you can see it in your behaviors. Sometimes you can see it in the patterns in your life. Like, I change my job every 2 years kind of thing, or whatever it might be. But it just takes a little bit of reflection.
I have a lot of anonymous questions. Do you have time for more, Paul?
Sure.
How do I overcome the fear of revealing myself to others?
And that's just jumping in. If you want it. When I was up in Calgary last, the Lord put it on my heart. I think I told Greg and Angela and Brent and Jen. Is Jen on tonight? I thought I saw her name. I don't see her.
She was, but she had to.
Okay. She's still here.
That if this is something that would be helpful, Matt and I would be delighted to come and facilitate some retreats that will make it a safe place for you to come and do that. Brant was telling me that, well, we've got a lot of people from different locations, because it really helps to do this in proximity with people that you want to spend your time with and be in community with. So, maybe there could be something for the folks in Calgary, and then another one on another weekend for the folks from somewhere else, or because you want to have a group that you want to get to know each other. And when you decide to do this kind of thing, for example, we never sprung this on our missionaries. They knew what they were getting into. And we had lots of coaching calls with them before we even started, so that nobody was blindsided or ignorant of what the weekend would look like. But the long and the short of it is, while we can make a safe place for that unfold, the only way to be naked is to be naked. You just go. And, having a baby with your clothes on is pretty difficult. That kind of intimacy requires that you reveal yourselves to one another. And the fruitfulness of that intimacy is the child. And it's kind of like, as much as you want to know how to do this, you cannot go down to Tim Hortons and order a cup of joy. You may really enjoy that coffee, but joy is a byproduct of relationship. The child is a byproduct of intimacy. And at some point, you have to be willing to reveal yourself, whether it's physically, emotionally, or spiritually, in the appropriate context. Do not come to our retreat and think that you're going to do anything like that. But it doesn't have to be in that format. You can do this husband and wife together. You can do it friends together. You can do it at Greg and Angela's house at wine and cheese night. You can do this in the man cave at Brant's house. You don't need someone to do this with you. It's the purpose of friendship is just to share your life and share with you, like James says, well, I'm just a first grader showing a kindergartner where the cookie jar is, for goodness sakes. It's not like I know how to make cookies. So you don't have to do it alone, but there is a point where you have to make a choice to enter in.
Follow-up question. How do I know who the people I reveal myself to are?
Who do you want to do that with?
This is so much easier when it's not me asking anonymous questions.
Who do you want to do that with? That's the place to start. My guess is you all know 3, 4, 5 people. The interesting thing is you just because, let's say you had 12 people there, just because you have 12 people there doesn't mean you're going to become 12 of the best friends in the world. Doesn't mean it's going to happen. 3 may become a tight group over here, and 4 over there, and 6 over there. But one of the things we noticed with our missionaries, so we would do these retreats. We would do 5 of them with 12 people. There were 10 missionaries and Matt and I. So we would do like 50 people. And it would take, 3-4 hours each person would have to reveal themselves and to have time together, to have meals together. And a lot more goes into it than just sitting around forever. But then when we all got together, we would rent this Christian camp and have 2 weeks of intensive training for our missionaries. And then all 50 or 100 of them would get up and in 15 or 20 minutes in front of everybody share their story quickly that they did through tears and whatever before, and they didn't now because they'd already done it once. And then all of a sudden, friendships would form immediately. Like as soon as someone shared, boom, friendship started, and 5 people would go have coffee together that never met each other before. And then we would get to China, and we had 6 weeks together before they started teaching, and we all lived in one apartment building. We had 100 apartments in one building, and we did this on a regular basis. But we did it over dining. I had a dining room built with 12 tables that sat 10 people. And the only rule was I paid for all your food and hired a chef to come in and cook. So you didn't have to do any cooking. The only rule was you couldn't sit at the same table twice. So within a short period of time, everybody knew everybody. Then all of a sudden, everybody's hanging out in everybody's apartment, and you find who it is you enjoy to the utmost, which doesn't mean you disenjoy other people. You connect with people because you connect with people. Doesn't mean you have to just be madly, in love with everyone. And it's you live life together, and there's only so many hours in the day, so you do what's in your heart to do, and you don't feel guilty about it. Whenever you have a relationship that's birthed in love, there's no guilt possible.
I like just listening to you talk, Paul.
That's why we talk all the time, Angela.
I know. I'm like, these questions I have heard the answers to so many times. Here's one I know you will really enjoy. I hope I read it. I hope whoever sent this in, I hope I'm asking it the right way. And if I'm not, just if you're brave, raise your hand. And if you feel comfortable, please raise your hand. How do I overcome being friends with people in ministry versus just life-giving friendships? And how do I know the difference? And the longer question or context is, I'm in ministry and I want to do the work of ministry or feel responsible for relationships in ministry, but I don't like all of the people God's asking me to do relationships with in ministry.
Well, that's a really loaded question, because if God's asking you to do it, who am I to even offer an insight, right? The bigger question is what do you think ministry is? Now, when we think of vocational ministry, we think of campus ministry, blah blah blah, whatever, right? Pastor, Sunday school teacher, you just name them off, whatever occupation. But let me give you an example that I gave to Greg and Angela last week. Imagine you're a woodworker. You love making furniture. It's your joy. And you work for a production furniture company making furniture. You don't really enjoy it, but you really have it in your heart to bless people with your furniture. Imagine if you started a company and you made beds. And because you know how to make them, they're beautiful, and you know how to make a canopy bed. And because you love canopy beds, because you know that God said, and his banner over you is love, and you want that canopy, it just reminds you of the love of God. Imagine crafting that bed, and every moment you're building it, you're praying for the people that are going to buy that bed, that are going to conceive their child in that bed, for the child that's going to wiggle and squirm and poo in the middle of that bed in the middle of the night, grow up scared of the boogeyman at 8 and climb in that bed, that they would always receive the love of God that was formed by my hands into the creation of that bed, so that even the creation cries out for anyone that touches that bed, receive the love of God. So that everyone who falls asleep in that bed goes, I've had the best night's sleep I've ever had in my life. Do you know how many people, the only reason I say this is because we have a bed in our guest room. It's a big king size bed. It's got a $350 cheapo mattress on it, right? Do you know how many people have slept on that mattress, said it was the best night's sleep they've ever bought, and went and bought that same mattress on Amazon? James Jordan's one of them. He goes, I've never slept like that in my life. Well, I'm not going to sit there and say, well, James, my wife and I have prayed over that mattress 1,000,000 times. That everyone that sleeps over that mattress, that squishiness of that foam would be the squishiness of Papa's belly. And it would be like a little kid just laying his head on Papa's belly. And they would fall asleep in the midst of that love and have the best dreams. There's at least a dozen people who have slept on this bed from all over the world that have asked me, where did you get that bed? True story. I'm not kidding you. You see, you think that your job, your vocational ministry is something you have to do, but that's corruption. When who you are, what you say, and what you do are not one and the same thing, you're broken. But when the love that's in you comes out of you in whatever it is you're doing, your ministry is everything that God gave you as a son or daughter of God to bring to the community. And all of the community recognizes the value of it. So now price and value are congruent so that you receive all that you should be paid because of what you brought, the love you brought to the community. They happily and gladly give it to you, not trying to cheat you down and get you to give them a cheaper price and think, hey, because I got you to give me money off, I'm a smarter consumer. You're a sucker. Sucks to be you. But you gladly pay that money. You're delighted because what are you doing? You're participating in the love that that person received from the Father, in the gifts of their hand, and that love forms the bed. That love does the ministry. That love is the secretary. That love is the mom. You see, what you're giving away is what you receive. You absolutely will give away what you have. It's either going to be love or it's not. It's either going to be a covenant movement or it's going to be a contractual movement where you're an employee and you make a widget and you get paid for it. There's no love at all, but it's a good quality bed. Didn't get a good night's sleep on it though. So I would say that the question to ask is, what is ministry? And then, who am I in ministry? And who do you say that I am in ministry, God? And is my life, is my heart, my words, my actions, my very being, my ousia, is it congruent with you? And is everything flowing out of me, or is this something I've got to do? Especially if I'm a support raising missionary. Sucks to have to write that letter at the end of the month, hoping people will give to you next month. And you don't have anything to say. You think, oh, what now? Well, I'm a missionary. I'm not supposed to be empty-handed here. You know, I see a couple of snickers. I used to be one. So I hated that letter. You know, I got to really not want to do that. But imagine if you got on a Zoom call and you shared this message of love with your supporters. Do you think they're getting their money's worth now? You see, the value of who you are is released through your hands. It's released through your life. When you are doing something that is not you, stop doing it.
Haven't heard that answer before, Paul. Just
That's
kidding.
next week, Angela.
I heard it last time.
I'm like, even hearing it a second time just wrecks my heart just as much as it did the first time. In a completely different area, non-ministry related, how can I tell that my word, my act, and my being are all aligned and or the same?
Well, if you can't, the people around you can. Ask them.
How would I ask the people that question?
Like, you know, do I do what I say? You know, is what comes out of my mouth and what comes out of my life, are they the same thing? Am I congruent, or am I kind of messed up? you feel free to tell me. My children always tell me how messed up I am. Oh, by the way, you guys need to know, like, I'm not saying this like I got my act together. Talk to my kids. Do you know how I learned that kids weren't supposed to grow up with their one parent loving them with all their heart and the other parent loving with all their heart? They're supposed to grow up in the middle of their parents loving each other with all their hearts. Do you know how I got that revelation? I got it in my kitchen, repenting to my 21-year-old for messing up his life. It just came out of my mouth. He and I both knew it was true at the same time. And a campus minister was spending the night going to a James Jordan conference. Actually, I was going to speak at that conference, and it's like, I can't do it. I'm just too messed up. But what happened was that campus minister, college ministry, like a UChurch kind of guy, he grew up in a divorced home, and now he realized why he was messed up. You know, he went and shared that with his siblings and shared it with the people in his ministry. And, you know, it was like one of those kumbaya moments where people started receiving love. Well, that was real love, and it came from a very painful place. Does that make sense? So it's not like this is Ask Dr. Phil kind of stuff. God's the one with the answers. Most of the things that I can share are, I heard someone say not too long ago, I don't want to listen to a bunch of old people, retelling their stories and stuff like that. You know, I want to know how to live life together now with the people around me, someone that doesn't have white hair. And I'm thinking, amen. I want my children's testimony to be, well, I never sinned a day in my life. I've never had a screwed up relationship ever. I never have to have those Zoom calls you're having, Dad. You know, like, yes, amen. You know, but it doesn't work like that. But when you understand that participation is receiving something from someone in the spirit, in relationship with God. So you're not hearing my story and trying to apply it to your life. You are connecting with me in my connection with God, who had loved me in that moment, and receiving that same stuff, and then him looking at you and saying, I'm here. I'm here. And by the way, Paul's not my favorite. You are. And it's true.
I have a puking question now.
Okay.
About that puking moment specifically. Is giving up the idea of failing God a puking moment?
Giving up the idea of failing God. I'm not sure that I know fully what they're asking, but if you mean like, I cannot do enough to please God, I can't live up to his expectations, he already knew that. He knew that when he created you. I mean, it's not a secret. If you know it, he knows it. Even if you don't know it, he knows it. But you know what? Something happens when you hold a little child. You know, I'm not trying to anthropomorphize God. And this little child that I didn't know 10 seconds before, I would willingly, without hesitation, take a bullet for right now. Absolutely jump in front of a car for her. Well, that doesn't even come close to how God felt when in his heart he created you. He created a universe for you. You actually are his favorite. He chose the family you would be born into, and he knew they were screwed up. He chose the boundaries of your habitations, and he knew you'd be a wanderer. He knew it, but he also knew that not only would he take a bullet for you, he did. He died for you willingly, lovingly, so that he can have eternity with you. I mean, how can you fail a God that loves you like that? It's another impossible moment. You can't do it. So just fess up. That's how you feel. Guess what? Your feelings aren't you. They're yours. Your feelings will change. You are who you are in your heart. So reveal to him your heart that causes you to feel this way. And he will cause you to walk in his ways. He's the one that changes your heart, Ezekiel 26. So you don't have to worry about it. He already knows. And by the way, everybody else around you knows too.
I have another widow heart question for you. I've been married for a long time and there's lots of wounds in our marriage. How do I start overcoming the widow heart and revealing myself to my spouse?
You meet the bridegroom. You can't overcome the widowed heart. Just as the orphan heart can only be changed. Remember, only God can change your heart. And only the Father could change your heart of an orphan into the heart of a son. You know, Pinocchio tried forever. You know that story of Pinocchio was about this. It was written about the heart of sonship, moving from the heart of an orphan, a puppet, to the heart of sonship. In fact, Brant, that's what I was preaching on in Seattle when we met, was Pinocchio. And so for the widowed heart to even be able to reveal it to your spouse needs to come from the heart of the bridegroom. It can't come from your widowed heart. He or she already knows that there's a problem there. I guarantee you, if you are feeling alienated from your husband or your wife, they know it. They may not know why, but they know something's not right. And that's why they go, what's wrong? What's wrong? Oh, I don't know. Of course you know. But even if you don't know, they still want to know. They know that something's wrong, even if the what isn't there. But the only person that can change that widowed heart into the heart of a bride is the bridegroom. That's the beginning of the restoration of the marriage, is the restoration of the heart. RTF has, helped me. It doesn't mean everybody in RTF knows how to deal with the widowed heart. Not everyone is even aware of that, but there are quite a few people that have been brought into that revelation and walk in an authority that helps in that regard. In fact, once we realized this, we didn't know what to do. So I asked some friends who were on the board of RTF to fly out. And we have a community here that hangs out at my house, about 50 people. And we had them come and take all of us through an issue-focused ministry, all singles too, to deal with the widowed heart. It was hilarious, actually, because one couple, we rented a house for them, and so they would look out the window and wave goodbye in the driveway. One couple who really didn't like each other very much were just madly making out in the driveway. They were just laughing. It's like, because they didn't even like each other. And then 9 months later, they had a baby, and they're still living in the bliss of the honeymoon. And it's been 7-8 years now. So for us, we chose inner healing to jumpstart that as a community, but it was still meeting the bridegroom. Does that make sense? It wasn't meeting Jesus as Lord and Savior. It was meeting him as. So the first time I met Jesus as bridegroom, it scared me to death. I was on a plane over Siberia, and he came into the plane as bridegroom. I was reading this book by this guy Escher, I can't remember what, but it was about the love of the bridegroom, and I knew it was real. And I started to feel overwhelmed by this love, like I knew what was happening. And I was like, no, not here. 30,000 feet over the tundra. No. And so just gently, the spirit left. And all I did was cry for the next month, like the woman in the Song of Solomon's, "Where is my beloved? Have you seen her?" Like, what an idiot I was, because it's what I always wanted. And so, but when it's him. Like, listen, those of you who don't know the hug of a dad and the hug of a boyfriend are probably going to need RTF anyway.
We're just laughing. I love how honest you are.
Well, the cool thing is about Zoom, you can hang up. You never have to talk to me again.
Angela elbowed me earlier and she said, "Stop laughing, Greg." I was like, "Can't help it. It's just straight to the point."
Yeah, right to the point.
You either laugh or you cry, so I'm just choosing to laugh.
I had someone ask a question. Obviously, this is more of a pandemic thing since everything has been more online instead of in person. But have you ever cultivated something like this virtually, or is it better done in person, or better fruit in person?
It's always better in person. But isn't Jesus doing it virtually? Isn't it in the Spirit? How many of you know if you're in the Spirit or not in the Lord's day? Like when he shows up, I mean, I know exactly what Paul meant when he said, I don't know, or John or whoever it was says, I was in the Spirit in the Lord's day, I think, It's like, that's virtual. It helps when you have a connection with people personally already. Like I talk with Greg and Angela, and there's no distance because it's virtual. I have chats with Brant or with other people that are on Zoom right now. We've connected over Zoom, and for goodness sakes, I met my wife and fell in love with her before I ever met her physically. So of course I believe in virtual.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I did have a question come in. How can I tell when I'm in the Spirit or not?
I don't know.
I don't have an answer. You're supposed to be Dr. Fitz helping us out.
Yeah, I mean, you either are or you aren't. I mean, does it really matter if God's there, if it's in the Spirit or not in the Spirit? I mean, ultimately it is, because God is Spirit. But if it changes your heart, it was God. It's real. It doesn't. Is God not real because he's Spirit? I mean, yeah, I don't know how you know. Sometimes I think it's, Jody, can I pick on you? We chatted over Zoom, and I felt like we entered into the Spirit and shared with what the Spirit was doing, and we've only met twice, I think. So that never happened when we met, that I remember. It could have, I don't remember, but I do remember the last time we chatted on Zoom. How did you know if you were in the Spirit or not? Like, I looked in your eyes and I said, "Oh, something's happening."
Yeah, I think you just know. There's a flow to conversation, and you feel at peace and comfortable, and there's a momentum forward in it, I guess, just to use some words to describe an internal feeling where it's not a difficult thing. It's like there's a forward movement and a connection.
But was it real?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it was real.
It was real. Yeah, I mean, and that's how you know, right? I mean, because it's still there.
Yeah. For sure.
Thank you. Thanks for letting me pick on you.
Yeah. Anytime.
Your face was right there, and I said, I don't know
right
what to
say.
Jody's always our go-to interpreter, help us find words. I have one more question that someone sent in, but it's not related to anything else that we've chatted about yet. Well, you've chatted, but I haven't asked. Is what's the most hopeless situation you have seen God show up in your life?
In my personal life,
In your
or in other people's lives?
I think they were asking your personal life. But if you want to defer to someone else's life, that's okay too.
The most hopeless. I mean, I've had enough. I can fill an egg carton with hopeless moments. I can tell you the most scared that he showed up. That really, when the doctors told me I had cancer and I wasn't going to live, that got my attention. I went through the surgery to have the tumor removed, and then was doing radiation treatments. I think it was like, I don't know, I can't remember how many. I had to do like 6 or 7 weeks of radiation, Monday through Friday, and maybe it was 6. I don't know, but I was towards the end of it, and I had throat cancer, and my voice is completely different than what my voice was 20 years ago. Like not even the same. You wouldn't recognize me if you heard my previous voice. But so for a year I couldn't talk because the radiation just burned the skin on the inside of my mouth to where it would just come out in sheets. So I couldn't speak for a year. But I was, I guess you would call it whatever kind of sickness you get from doing that. I didn't feel good. Like I felt horrible. It's hard to relate what that feels like unless you've experienced it, but because it's not like something, it's not like some kind of normal not feeling good, but it was, I was supposed to wear fentanyl patches all day long to keep myself drugged up. And I couldn't do it. I couldn't even take one of those little narcos or whatever they call them. Like I wouldn't even take an Advil. I don't want to do drugs. So I said, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm not going back. I'm finished. I'm done. I said this to God, and he asked me audibly, I think. If you were in the room, you might have heard it too, but to me, it was audible. He just simply said, "Are you sure?" And I instantaneously knew that whatever I answered, I gave right then and there was going to decide whether I died then or not. And I just stopped because I heard him, and my despair was like I really wanted to go. Like I knew that I was making a choice. I really wanted to go, but I had a 3-year-old on the other side of the bedroom door going, "Papa, Papa, can I come in?" And I just started crying. It's like I don't want my child to grow up as an orphan. I didn't know anything about James Jordan at the time or Father Hart, but that despair was just overwhelming. But his love came in and met me, and 20 years cancer free because of that decision. But I know I would have died if I said, "I'm done." So there are lots of others. You guys have more stories than I do. Everyone has those stories because the fall is so horrific. Demons are beyond. There's no such thing as a cute demon. You see these cartoons with little cute demons. They're horrific, and they try to make our life horrific. And sometimes we're very intentionally and intensively wounded in ways that are unspeakable. And we can all come to those. We could go round robin, and everybody could share. And some of that will happen in the sharing of your lives together. In fact, all of it will happen in the sharing of your lives together. But I'm not unique in that at all. God created us. He shows up.
Thanks for sharing.